FearScape Media Network, exploring the unknown, one podcast at a time.
Hey everybody, Stefan here. This episode is sponsored by the great folks over at Box Mountain. Box Mountain is a subscription box service that has my favorite sub box yet, the Cryptid Crate. You see, Josh got one of these for his birthday, and I was super jealous because it was packed full of merchandise pertaining to cryptids. The box he received first was all about the Flatwoods Monster, which of course is one of our favorites, and it had a t-shirt, a book, a patch, mug, and some awesome stickers. So I checked out the price to get one for myself, and let me tell you, it is well worth the value. These make excellent gifts for yourself or even friends that are cryptid lovers as well. Now, if you use the coupon code FearScape, you will get 25% off the first month for any new subscription or 10% off individual purchases. So go ahead and head on over to fearscapepodcast.com/cryptidcrate now and get yourself one today.
The SCP multiverse is under constant assault, and destruction can come at any moment. Therefore, having just one database is a folly the Foundation can no longer accept. Join Dr. Kevin Milgram and SCP-073, Kane, as they create an oral history of the SCP Foundation, in Memories of Kane, an SCP story, hosted by Daniel Doremus. For should the Foundation fall, the unkillable first murderer of man will live on. New episodes drop every second Wednesday of the month on the FearScape Media Network. Visit fearscapemedia.com for more information.
Thank you for tuning in to FearScape Paranormal Podcast. We are on a journey to understand and to discover the phenomena that seems to exist all around the globe. We invite you to join us on this journey into the unknown.
Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to another fantastic adventure on FearScape Paranormal Podcast here on the FearScape Media Network. This is Stefan Gearhart. I am your host, as usual, and I am joined, as always, by my sidekick with the haircut that makes Mo from the Three Stooges feel jealous, Mr. Josh Rutledge.
I thought I was going to go with Mo from The Simpsons, and
pretty similar. Well, no, Mo has a Jew-fro, doesn't he?
Yeah, he's got the fro going on. I do not have a fro.
No.
My uncle had a fro in the 70s, and
what happened to it? Did he lose it?
No, he changed it. He just, like there's like pictures of him in the 70s with a fro, and then you fast forward 5 or 6 years, and he's just got like a bowl cut. I don't know how he went from fro to bowl cut, but
I don't know.
There was magic in play or something. So.
There had to be. But Josh, welcome. Friend.
Thank you. Thank you. I feel welcome.
You should. We have a neat little show tonight. Thank you guys for your patience with us missing a show last week. I was sicker than a dog, and it wasn't even COVID. Wasn't even COVID.
You mean people get sick other than COVID?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yep. There's no vaccine for food poisoning, though. Let me tell you, it's not. It's just binge.
Yeah.
So, anyways, we got a neat little show for you tonight. We actually have the director of a new docuseries, a paranormal docuseries, getting ready to premiere down the road here on also premiering on lore.tv, which is soon to be a streaming service here. Dark Holler is the name of the docuseries, and the director is Ward Hiney. And we are super excited about this. Takes place in Appalachia, which, us having Kentucky roots, we're super excited. Plus all of our West Virginia folks. And I know Appalachia is more than just Kentucky and West Virginia, but still we claim it as ours.
I'm going to need you to pick a pronunciation because first you said Appalachia.
Well, I go back.
Now you said Appalachia.
I chose both on purpose because I didn't want to leave anybody out.
Well, what if it's Appalachia
or Appalachia? That's the Italian version.
We don't pronounce anything the way it's supposed to be pronounced in Kentucky. That would never be the case.
It's actually Appalachia.
Yeah.
Yeah, I live over in Appalachia.
I mean, Michael has a CH, and we pronounce it like a K. Yep. So maybe it is supposed to be Appalachia.
Appalachia. It also sounds like this is my daughter, Appalachia. Appalachia Daniel Boone.
I don't know.
My daughter.
You just go with like a bunch of random Appalachian names now. Okay,
yep.
So.
Appalachia Black Mountain.
From Hazard.
I don't know. From Hazard. Anyways, yeah. So we've got Ward coming on the show. We're super excited about that. But of course, before we get to all that jazz, we want to remind you guys to get out there and like, review, rate, all that stuff. Share the damn thing and make sure
share
to tell
it
people
far and wide. Go tell it on the mountain.
But yeah, stop what you're doing. Go review the show on Apple Podcasts, man. That's one of the most badass places, or iHeartMedia. Some of those places you can review really helps us out. We'll be here waiting for you when you get back. And we're waiting. And welcome back. Thank you. Thank you for your reviews.
Thank you for your review.
100,000 of them.
Spectacular.
But yeah, just want to remind you of that. But anyways, let's get to our segments of the week because I got a good one for Psychic Word of the Week. And now, the Psychic Word of the Week. So Psychic Word of the Week, as usual, comes from the Encyclopedic Psychic Dictionary from Dr. June G. Blitzer, Ph.D. Rest in peace, honey bear. I love you, but I never knew you. I flipped through the pages right before we started, and I landed on page 42. Oh. 42. We usually hit the middle so often that I wanted to hit the front, so I kind of stopped there. And the phrase that grabbed my attention was astral currents. Astral currents.
Now this is like currents, like the currents in a stream, not currency, right?
Correct.
It's not the money you use while you're in the astral plane.
And not like the fruit either.
Okay. Yeah.
Astral currents, an ethereal substance able to act upon the physical and astral plane atoms to bring about a coherent, agreeable vibrational frequency that the psychic can perceive. A number of parallel lines of astral substance extending from the psychic to the scene of viewing. A tube that is formed according to the will of the psychic, whether he or she intends to see into the past, present, or future. Tubes cause a physiological process to take place in the psychic's body to bring him or her the clairvoyant pictures and impressions. So essentially, it's the pathway from the astral plane to the psychic brain is what it seems to me. It reminds me of like the tubes of time there in Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventure. Like that's what it reminds me of.
What really strikes me the most about all the stuff in this book is that it all has to have existed for someone to say, this is what happened to me, so that June G. Blitzer could assign it a meaning or term.
I know. This is why I'm sad she's gone, because I would have killed to know the research that went into this and the folks that she talked to. Like, that's what I wish.
Also, new cryptocurrency, Astro Coin.
Astro, get that on there now. Dogecoin's about to drop, y'all. I'm telling you, it's time for Astro Coin, man. You got to get on there. That Doge, he's old. Got to put him down. So,
no,
sorry about that.
No.
Thank you, June G. Blitzer. All right. Well, let's get into our next segment, which is I got a little spooky news to kind of follow up, kind of last week's episode. So let's get into some spooky news. All right, so for spooky news this week, like I said, got some follow-up here to the UAP investigation. This dropped recently. This is on a number of websites. You can find this anywhere, but especially in Indiana, because Indiana Representative Andre Carson is calling for further investigation into the UFO sightings. Indiana Congressman Andre Carson is calling for a deeper investigation into UFOs. On this past Sunday's Face the Nation on CBS, Carson said he wants congressional hearings on the issue following a declassified Pentagon report on dozens of sightings that cannot be explained. In their report, U.S. intelligence and defense officials did not list outer space or extraterrestrial life as possible explanations for the sightings, but they also didn't explicitly rule it out. In an interview Wednesday, Carson said it is a national security issue. If there is technology out there that we cannot explain, that has huge implications for the safety and security of the American people, said Representative Carson, who is a Democrat, by the way, who chairs the subcommittee on counterintelligence and counterproliferation on the House Intelligence Committee. The recent Pentagon report shows, of course, we know this, 144 sightings of UAPs since 2004. This report says only one could be explained. Carson says, even though the report didn't give us all the answers, I think it's very significant because it represents a huge shift in the way our intelligence handles the issue. Before the report was released, Carson chaired a classified briefing for his subcommittee on the findings. He says, when we take UAPs more seriously and treat it like a potential security risk that it is, it brings us closer to getting answers. U.S. officials cited several possible reasons for the sightings in their report. Of course, we talked about this last week, like ice crystals and airborne clutter. Carson said, although it didn't explicitly list an extraterrestrial explanation, it is not completely off the table in a wink, wink, nudge, nudge kind of way. I think a lot of folks would like for us to say that the sightings are extraterrestrial. The intelligence community says that we can't completely rule that out, but it's clear we have to do a lot more digging. He has also not been able to give a timeline yet for when there will be more hearings on UFOs. So interesting.
Yeah.
So, I mean, he flat out says, if we don't treat it like a threat, we're never going to find out.
Which is what we've talked about, right? I mean, that's the whole mode of delivery. Whether or not it's a threat doesn't matter. We have to treat it like it's a threat so that it gets funding and resources and all that jazz.
We do not.
Figure it out.
The military does not spend money on peace.
No, the Peace Corps does.
Yeah.
But that's different. I don't think there's a UAP report coming from the Peace Corps.
There should be one, though. Man, that would be great. The Peace Corps or Greenpeace or Space Peace.
Yeah, Space Peace would be the next.
Peace. I would join.
Right.
I would have joined Space Peace right out of school, man. Go up there and bring
Protect
food to the poor aliens on the dark side of the moon.
Protect the galactic whales and stuff.
Yes. Man, I would have done that so quick. I mean, and a quick side news. I don't think we need to cover it, but of course, Richard Branson from Virgin went up into outer space, essentially the first civilian to go into outer space, which Simpsons predicted 15 years ago. Of course.
Yeah, I think it was his second time, right? And he didn't go into outer space. He went into the edge of space.
And there is huge debate on that. But yes, that, it all depends because there is no true defining line as to where space starts. I was reading in an article and it is heavily debated. So, but according to him and his scientific folks, he did indeed go to space. But one article was like, well, unless he goes to space and orbits the Earth, it don't count.
Well, I mean, at the end of the day, he has all the money. He will make the history, whatever it needs to be. So.
Yep, that's a fact. And then, Bezos is supposed to be going up next month or something. So,
yeah,
whatever.
Now he's actually going to outer space, not to the edge of space.
You tell that to Branson.
I don't know. Like Branson went to the beach, stuck his toe in the water. And was like, I went to space.
Hey, I would do it. That's still space. Your toe still got wet. That's, you know what I mean? You know what I'm saying? That's still cool. I would do that in a heartbeat. So, but anyways, let's get moving on. That's our spooky news for the week. So, this guy was on the classified committee, so he knows even more than we do. And he's like, we need to be looking into this more. So,
is that what he sounds like?
Yeah, I'm from Indiana, and I'm one of the few Democrats here. So, yes. Yeah. Anyways, let's get moving on because I want to get to, which we haven't been to.
Yeah, hurry up. Get to the part of mine.
I know, we want to get to Cryptid of the Week. It's been a minute, so let's get to Cryptid of the Week.
Hey, y'all. It's the Jersey Devil. Hope y'all are ready to meet some of my friends.
Cryptid of the Week.
Hey, y'all. It's the Jersey Devil. Just want to say hi, y'all. And Josh, I just wanted to say that I think your haircut looks beautiful.
Why, thank you, JD.
I think it looks just like mine.
I don't know if that's a compliment or not.
I'm just saying. Anyways, I'll let you go. I just want you to get to talking about my friend.
You know, I was thinking the other day, National Lampoon's Vacation, the first one.
I love that movie.
Somebody needs to get the Wally World hat because that is ripe for transitioning to a Jersey Devil hat.
Oh my God, yes. You need to tell Santosh. He would make that for me in a heartbeat. You know, he's drawn me nude a couple times.
Does he draw you like his French girls?
Oh my God, yes.
All right. So tonight's...
Give me our microphone back. All right.
So tonight's cryptid comes from Kenya, South Africa. Kenya and South Africa.
That's where Obama's from.
You keep your conspiracies to
really.
yourself, man.
I didn't figure he'd be the type, but okay.
I think he just reads stuff. He's from Jersey.
So this is the dingo neck. A dingo neck ate my baby.
That's what I was thinking. I was like, dingoes are in Kenya too? Or just their necks?
Yeah, I don't know. So it's a cat-like creature that's aquatic, also known as the jungle walrus. So it says the most experts consider the dingo neck to be the stuff of legends. An unconfirmed report suggests the painting in a cave in South Africa matches the cryptid's description almost exactly. It was first accounted for in 1907 in Kenya by an explorer, John Alfred Jordan. And he saw it on the banks of the River Magori. He led his employer to the river's edge to witness the fearsome beast. When Jordan saw the monster, he shot, but only grazed an ear. The angry dingo neck roared as the frightened men ran away. Adventurer author Edgar Beecher Bronson,
God bless you,
recounted Jordan's alleged encounter in a fireside chat in his 1910 book, Enclosed Territory. But yeah, I mean, it basically is the depiction that it has here is almost like a cat with an armadillo shell on its back.
That's kind of cool.
But colored and marked like a leopard.
Yeah, I'm totally digging that.
And a broad fin tail. So, yeah, the dingo neck.
Dingo neck from Kenya.
Kenya and South Africa.
Not related to Obama.
Whew, man.
Tell you what, some people,
man. I never seen a dingo neck. But that's kind of sounding like George Bush. Never mind.
Yeah,
I take it back.
Don't ever do impressions.
No. All right. Well, let's get moving on. Obviously, I've ruined everyone's life with my terrible Obama accent. So,
you ruined mine.
Shut up. Anyways, let's go ahead and get to Ward, director of Dark Holler. We'll be back in 2 seconds.
Hello, Blanket Huggers. Stefan here. On March 28th, 2021, Josh and I received a message through our website's Submit a Sighting form from someone claiming to be Terry R. Rist, the man referenced in Hellier and the man interviewed by Alan Greenfield in Secret Cipher of the Euphonauts. From there, we received a number of cryptic emails filled with information on places to search for answers to the larger mystery of the quest and journey Josh and I have been on. So we decided, fake or not, we should take it seriously, as much of the information given panned out and definitely opened our eyes to many new things. So we enlisted the help of Astral Stew co-host Santosh and FearScape guest and Greenfield's publisher Olaf Phillips. Together, the four of us have been digging deeper and deeper into not only the true identity of our source of paranormal gold, whether he is the Terry Rist or not, but also into the mystery of the information given us. It has led us to some amazing doors into such things as the secret space program, Hollow Earth, Darrow and Tarot, caves, underground bases, government cover-ups and conspiracies, and so much more. So if you would like to learn more about these emails, Terry's advice on where to look for more high strangeness, and our conversations and discoveries thus far, please become a monthly subscriber to our Patreon called Wristwatch at fearscapepodcast.com/support or patreon.com/fearscapepod. There you can get access to the emails themselves, the WhatsApp conversation about it all with Josh, myself, Santosh, and Olaf, and even any new clues that we have found. You can even join the investigation and add anything you have found to help us dive deeper into the mystery. You will also get access to other FearScape-related things, such as extended interviews with guests not aired on the show, early access to Estes sessions with us and friends, and so much more. Wristwatch is a Patreon exclusive for our most dedicated fans. Join today and discover why the truth is now.
And thank you guys so much for sticking around. We are back. FearScape, yay. We are here with Ward Hiney, like we had talked about, director of Dark Holler. And the very first question, Ward, which you say hi real quick. Do your thing. Say hi.
Hi, I am Ward Hiney, and I'm excited to be here.
Good. Okay, now that's out of the way. Josh and I were having a debate over Appalachia. Is it Appalachia or Appalachia?
If you're from there, it's Appalachia.
See, ooh, that's what I said first.
Well, see, we were talking about how Michael has a CH.
Maybe it's Appalachia.
Maybe it's Appalachia. I mean,
Because we're from Kentucky. We've heard it both ways. I mean, it's both. And that's
I've never heard it Appalachia. I've never heard that.
Well, not Appalachia. I'm talking about Appalachia or Appalachia.
Where in Kentucky?
I'm in the Louisville area. I've got a family on Shelby
we went
County.
To school, all over the place, Campbellsville and, Central Kentucky. We've got Lexington friends. I've got a ton of friends from Paintsville and all kinds of places. And I've heard both. And I used to travel with Kentucky Shakespeare, so I've been everywhere.
Monticello, Somerset, Lexington, Asheville.
The whole kid. We're from the whole state, Ward.
I am Kentucky, basically.
My theory would be the further east you go, the more likely it would be Appalachia.
I agree with that. Or even the further west. And let me tell you, Western Kentucky accents are very interesting because they can get real hangy too, but at the same time, it's weird. It's a weird one.
Like mixes into Tennessee over there at a certain point, doesn't it?
Yeah, it does. And a little bit of, Louisville's just Louisville's the only thing we say twangy. Everything else sounds like it's from Toledo, Ohio. So it's fine.
Yeah. Louisville's like the only I don't know, you can almost separate it out from the rest of Kentucky. So
even Lexington, which is a big city, still is like, we don't count it.
Yeah.
Is Louisville's right across the city right across the river from Cincinnati, right?
Nope.
It's downriver about an hour and a half.
You're thinking of Newport.
Covington, Newport is right there. And then
Louisville's across the river from Jeffersonville, Indiana, New Albany, Clarksville.
Yep. And then further down is where you get to Evansville and Paducah, that area where the clawed beast of the Ohio is.
So anyway,
we don't cover weird shit at all on this show.
No, we don't talk about any of that kind of stuff. So I guess to kind of get the conversation started here a little bit. So, of course, you're on the show. You're directing Dark Holler. See, a little more Kentucky came out there. So the question that I would have is, is this something that, you were asked to direct, like, sure, I'll do it because it sounds interesting, or because, you're really into this kind of stuff?
Yeah. So I guess probably, I think like a lot of people that lived through 2020, it was kind of, I guess, our threshold for what we could just file away as crazy. That threshold got a lot higher. And I think a lot of people felt that way. And so I experienced that too. And at the same time, I was being like, working from home, not able to go anywhere, had a lot of time to like read and start looking at stuff. And, I had never really seriously looked at even really stuff that's not controversial at all. Like MK Ultra existed and, Operation Paperclip, like all that stuff was real. And, I was only familiar with it, as stupid as it sounds, as like, the subplot to movies. And
right.
So like in the middle of that, I saw sort of toward the tail end of running down the rabbit holes, I saw Hellier. And I had a friend of mine who had, he was a minister at a small church that he had planted in Southern West Virginia. And I'd known him for a few years, and that location is maybe 45 minutes-ish from Hellier in Logan. Mm-hmm. And so I just sort of asked him, this place seems weird. I grew up maybe 45 minutes north of that in West Virginia. And so I have, but it's a significant 45 minutes. You guys know the geographical distinctions between places that are relatively close together on a map.
Oh, yeah.
Still significant. So.
Oh, yeah. We've been all through West Virginia as well. I mean, Kentucky back roads are very similar.
Yeah. So like, anyway, in the middle, I was like, this guy, has lived in that area. And I was kind of like, what do you think about this paranormal stuff generally? And, being down there, have you seen anything or experienced anything? And he kind of, we kind of danced around the subject for a little bit, but then he eventually came out and said, well, I have come to believe that a couple of weeks ago I performed an exorcism, sort of like quasi by accident in a baptism. So
oh my God.
That doesn't make so.
Baptism by fire is what we're talking about.
This is already Spanish, like, what do they call those? Telenovela. I'm in.
Well, when they say not by accident isn't quite accurate, I guess. He had been like looking back in church history, trying to go back, and had discovered that like we're Protestant, but he had looked at Luther. And apparently for a few years after the beginning of the Reformation, Luther would, with all of his baptisms, perform a lesser rite of exorcism with the baptism. And
I did not know that.
Yeah, and every baptism just was that. It was perceived. I guess
that makes sense, yeah.
And so he had been studying that and sort of considering implementing it. And this family that was in his church, whose the people that went to his church, they had a sister who had been like super heavy, started with just like Wicca, and then got like super heavy hoodoo conjure work, and to the point where people in her family, and I didn't get the whole story why at the time, but people in her family thought that she might be experiencing something, oppression or possession or something. And so he thought, okay, I guess if, this has been kind of put in front of me to start doing this, start practicing this way, this is a good person to start with. And so he met with her and they did the baptism. There's several like weird things that occurred during the baptism. And to the point that, he didn't say anything immediately after the baptism, because that would be like kind of rude, right? Like, hey, I think your sister was possessed. And it also like, it would be kind of narcissistic to be like, I just conducted an exorcism. But like there was enough weird stuff in the baptism itself that the people there witnessing it afterward were calling him and being like, what happened there? Do you think something might have come out of her?
Why was the water boiling?
And anyway, he got enough of those calls, and then when there was also like drug use involved, and that's part of. But anyway, there was also drug use involved, and so she went to rehab immediately after her baptism. Came back. When she came back, he still wasn't saying this, right? Other people were saying it to him, and she said it. She came out and said, "I was delivered in my baptism from possession." And so at that point, he was like, well, I mean, this is what, I have multiple witnesses asking me. This is the closest category I have for what happened. And she is, according to everyone around her, is dramatically different. So, yeah.
I mean, War, I'm going to tell you right now, you had me at accidental exorcism. I mean, I was already in, man. Like, and then just that explanation, I'm in 100%. Like, you bring in Appalachia, you bring in small churches, I'm in 100%. And especially knowing this dude knows his church history, I'm pagan and Buddhist and things, but I still have a very big fascination with church history and things like that, just history in general, but especially world religions. And I'm just already fascinated. Like I said, I'm in. We can end this now, and I just want to watch the show. So it sounds absolutely amazing without you even talking about the drama yet.
Well, it's weird, right? Because, you guys know, like churches in that area, you can get small churches that do some
crazy shit.
Oh, yeah. Dancing with snakes, all that kind of jazz. So,
yeah, I've walked out of like some places where people started like speaking in tongues and it got weird.
Oh, yeah.
But not down there.
Louisville surprisingly has a huge Pentecostal population. It's insane. And then I lived in the outskirts of Louisville when I was in high school, right off the county line, way out in the kind of, if there's a Styx in Louisville, it's where I lived. And across the street was a snake handling church, man. And they were always getting busted by the cops all the time. And that's in Louisville, man. Like,
right. That's the city.
When you get even like more off the cut.
Yeah.
Shoo-wee.
Yeah, so and it's not it's not one of those churches. Like I would very easily write that off as like, yeah, okay, I'm sure. But it's a very like buttoned up, like Reformed tradition. He wears a collar.
Oh yeah, the second you said the man knew his church history, I knew it was good.
And so anyway, I went down, and initially like I only planned on. I just got in a camera, and I have this background in like helping with documentaries. I worked on several of them on different subjects, nothing like this. And I just got in a camera to do freelance work with, and I was like, well, this is kind of a cool story. Like, let's go down, and maybe it's just like a 10-minute thing on YouTube or something. But and then I've always kind of had this dream ever since, growing up in West Virginia, of doing something that kind of felt like home to me. So a lot of the aesthetic is kind of informed by that, just the kind of like the leftover industrial revolution that's no longer there, like a dying coal, that kind of thing.
So is because I think in the trailers that I've seen, it seems a lot of the scenery seems to be very West Virginia. You spoke about your roots in West Virginia. Is the docuseries primarily, it says Appalachia, but is it primarily based in West Virginia?
Yeah, right now. So what happened was we went down to shoot that story, and one of the people that experienced a lot of stuff the nights leading up to Kristen's baptism, exorcism, was her mom. And so we couldn't interview her that day, so I had to come back later. And when I came back and finally got to talk to her mom, the same, like, I don't know if I'm comfortable saying the same entity. Like, you guys know when we're yeah. There's like things right? And then there's things you make sense, and then there's stuff that like you suspect.
Right. Yeah. Well, and we've even talked a number of times, because like one of a very famous haunting is the Smurl haunting, and it's something we've been looking into a lot more, was that there was a demon in the house that possessed spirits in the house. So there were times they didn't know if that was their grandmother that was there, or if it was the demon possessing the ghost of their grandma. So it gets crazy. So you can just say the spirit perceived to be the same entity.
Yeah. Okay. Right. The spirit perceived that I'm guessing
Yes.
Like it behaves according to a pattern, right?
Right. Yeah.
And that apparently has been at least 3 generations back in their family has been a thing that manifests a lot of the same ways and a lot of the same like high strangeness kind of phenomenon.
Mm-hmm.
Like, for example, like birds that are biologically too large to be where they are doing what they're doing. Weird encounters with owls. The name of the entity comes up a lot. But my point is, so you're talking about like, does this mostly stick in West Virginia? That particular story, like their family moved around a lot, but it's very like Grayson, Kentucky is about the furthest west. They venture, and then there's Logan, and then a little bit up in like one of the families is in Columbus. There's an event again, like 3 generations back that sort of split that family up into different places. Some of them moved away, and we talked to them too. So it's mostly West Virginia, this particular story, but I also, like, when I named it and came up with the idea of doing it in Appalachia, I was interested in the area in general, because there's stuff that ties in from, like, Logan has a lot of, like, there are things that relate it to Point Pleasant a lot too.
Well, which I'm sure we were going to bring up at some point.
Yeah.
You can't not. I mean, we've had so many West Virginia friends on here, and of course we're always talking about Point Pleasant and Indrid Cold and all that fun stuff, and Flatwoods and all the goodness.
Right. Know, the Mothman. It's funny that you mentioned the thing about owls. So like 2 weeks ago, I was driving a back road to go over and take my daughter to basketball practice. And on this back road, there's a little bridge that goes over a creek. And I was coming down the hill, and I was approaching the bridge, and I just happened to look at the guardrail on the bridge, and there's an owl sitting there in broad daylight, and it just like turns its head and looks at me, and then watches me go. Like, I'm looking at it, and I'm like, and it watches me. Like, we make eye contact as I drive by, and I'm like, there was an owl in broad daylight sitting on a bridge. Like, what? How, when does that happen? So,
was that Crybaby Bridge, Josh? Because it
was not.
Hollow. Oh, because there's a real famous Crybaby Bridge, Sleepy Hollow Road, that's literally like half a mile from Josh's house.
Same road, but different part.
Oh, okay.
Do you remember what day that was?
Oh goodness! I mean, it would have definitely been a Tuesday, because she had back to basketball practice on a Tuesday, and I would say, this is probably about 2 weeks back on a Tuesday. So whatever, I don't have a calendar in front of me right now.
I do. It would have been the 29th of June.
So yeah, and it was probably around, let's see, her basketball practice was at 7, so it was probably around like 6:30 or so when I saw that Eastern time. So, but yeah, I mean, it's just, I mean, my grandparents' farm in Shelby County, when I was little, they had a screech owl. And they had fixed up beds on the front porch because it was so hot, and their house was built in 1825, so they didn't have air conditioning. And so we were sleeping on the front porch with all the screens open and everything, trying to cool off. And like 2 o'clock in the morning, you hear this screech, and like this owl screech. I was like, nope, I'll sleep in the hot house.
So I would be real interested. I was just trying to look back through my emails and see when John might have talked to you about this. I think I got the email from him on the 30th. So I'd be real interested.
Oh, you're thinking?
Yeah, I'm looking at that too. Yeah, it's the
synchronicity.
30th. So it would have been the next day. Would have been when John would have emailed. Would have been the next day.
Yep, would have been the next day after that. Saw the owl the day before John emailed.
Yeah. So, well,
that's a synchronicity in the biz, I think.
Here in the biz, we call that a synchronicity.
So,
or in Appalachia, we call it synchronicity.
So yeah, man, that's one of the. I mean, I don't know. At a certain point, I mean, you guys are probably the same. You guys are like veterans of this way longer than I am. So I'm sure you're at this point already. But like at a certain point, I was just kind of like, every one of these things that happens now, it's just kind of like, well, of course.
Yeah,
Like, it doesn't
I'm
even-
telling you, if I sneeze and fart at the same time, I write it down now because I'm like, something just happened. Like that's where it's gotten. It's gotten that bad where everything is connected. I don't know.
Well, it's like I was so last night I was out. You were talking about it earlier. I was out on my property looking with my night vision at the sky, and I caught this really weird UFO thing. Not anything explainable. It is really a UFO because it's not a satellite, it's not the International Space Station, so on and so forth. But anyways, when I was editing the video to put up on YouTube, I left a lot of stuff in that I had like noticed with my camera, like a cluster of stars that I'd never seen before, and a cluster, like these little things, because I really don't know if like maybe me seeing that is what prompted me to see this other, this UFO to do a flyby. And so you don't really ever know what is related. And so you don't want to just rule it out as just happenstance or whatever the case may be. Cause I mean, it could be related to an experience that you later had. And so, but the problem is that you end up keeping everything. It's like a video hoarder paradise here. So,
that's part of the, like, at least I perceive at my, this young stage in this realm, that could be a danger, right? Is like you just get addicted to that feeling of, oh man, it's all connected. But at the same time, this stuff keeps happening to the point where you're like, you can't really deny it.
Right.
But I just found a memory popped up on Facebook from 11 years ago when I was married. And apparently someone 11 years ago tied one of those owl statues onto the car that we drove away with. When, they tie all the crap to the back of your car. And like, I'm sure, of course, that means nothing. Of course.
Right. But in the situation that you're in now, you're like, what if, right?
Mm-hmm. And I'm telling you, synchronicity in the paranormal and just paranormal in general, it's becoming the new spirituality. I mean, we talk about it with our wives all the time, that it is essentially our spirituality. I mean, it has become this religious thing for us because there is that same excitement that I used to get at an altar call when I see something in the sky that I've checked all my apps and I can't explain, or when I feel a hand on my shoulder and no one's in the room. It gives me that same hope, that same even I grew up Catholic too. So I grew up Catholic and then became a Southern Baptist when I moved to Kentucky. So I've experienced both sides of the rainbow, right? And so it's like at the same time, there's that fear of God, it's like, here's that fear. At the same time, I'm like, oh yeah. Like it's exciting. It's exhilarating again.
Well,
it's that endorphins.
It's also, I mean, for me, and it sounds like Ward, it might be a little bit of this for you, but if you like a mystery and you like getting to the solution of a mystery, you like solving problems. And so here's all this stuff that's kind of been presented to you. And one of the things that probably hangs me up the most is that I don't think I'll ever be able to solve this problem, but that doesn't stop me from trying to solve it. Right.
Yeah. So sometimes it's about the journey.
Right. And it has really, I mean, the last 18, 19 months since I really got heavy into doing this with Stefan on the podcast has really changed my outlook on a lot of things and how I approach a lot of things. It's
becoming a show, which it is still a show, but it is more about this mystery and this path for us, this journey.
Yeah. Every Thursday we go to church. So
every Thursday, and we find, I mean, I'm telling you, the guests, we will hypothesize for months about something and never tell anybody but each other. We'll have a guest come on and just drop it and be like, yeah, so blah, blah, blah. And we're like, wait, what? Like, and we just, the guests that come on all the time, we find all these synchronicities and similarities and, these answers to some of these smaller questions on the journey, right? That's best of luck to you because you're not going to stop. Welcome.
Well, it's, it will consume you for sure. And my biggest thing for a word to the wise is just pause and come up from air from time to time, because it can start to beat you down. I mean, we came back from Point Pleasant last September. And for like 3 days, we're like full of paranoia. We thought, like black helicopters were flying over Stefan. They were flying over me.
One
they were
landed in a field next to my
one
work.
landed in a field next to your workplace.
Unmarked black landed, then went back up.
Started hearing all kinds of
Computers
crackling, crackling noises on our phones and stuff. It was just so like the paranoia really just took over during all that stuff. And it's probably all just random things, bad network connection or whatever. But because we had just come back from Point Pleasant and everything we had done there, it just, felt overwhelming. So just, take a deep breath and process it.
Yeah. One of the guys that worked with me on this, who I'm incredibly indebted to, did paranormal investigation for like 14 years and was at one point practicing occultist, doing rituals and stuff. And he helped me both discern a lot of the things. He's since converted to Christianity, and it was helpful to have somebody that's seen, that's been in both, and to, I don't know, help discern some of the stuff that we were seeing coming across, and also to be like, because occasionally, like, I got a little bit like way, too far down that rabbit hole. And so it's helpful to have somebody who could be like, you might want to chill out for a minute. So I appreciate the advice, I guess.
Oh, yeah. Well, it's the same thing. Like there is a big difference between black magic and Wicca. Wicca is very light and it's all about healing and earth and things like that, But it's like if you're coming in and there's a ton of black candles and there's some crazy shit going on, it's probably not Wicca, and you need to know, hey, you need to back up. Or it's like, hey, this is nothing. This is literally a guy lighting a candle. Right. And so, yeah, it does, because when you aren't immersed in something, all you have is Hollywood giving you answers most of the time. And so you can't help but, I mean, I do it with things that I'm not immersed in, and you can't help but be, oh God, is this what it is? And so I like that. I like that you've got the people that you need to help you discern good or bad, right? And that's super important.
Yeah, I think one of the things that I've learned and that was real helpful from him, and I mean, this is the same, this is John Keel and Valet, and but the because there's this veil there, you don't know. You can say how something is representing itself to you,
right?
But you don't know, right?
Yeah.
Like, I'm capable of lying, so I would assume something on the other side is capable of lying as well. So like, I always keep that kind of in the back of my mind. Like, that's what hesitates me from being like, it's the same entity.
Right. Yeah.
Like, well, you could pretend to be anything, right?
Yeah.
So like this thing at least appears to be pretending to be like a discernible entity with a name that's very old.
Right.
And, but who knows? I mean, I can dress up as John Wayne. So yeah.
Yeah, well, I mean, we had a guy, if you're not familiar with him, M.R. Gorga. He is big into demonology. We had him on the show. He has a really great book called Demons Among Us. Highly recommend it. But we had him on the show, and he's talking a lot about it too. He's like, the whole thing that a demon does is lie and pretend, and it doesn't matter. He can pretend to be evil or he can pretend to be good. It doesn't matter. That's his jam. That's what he does. Like, he could tell you he's this and this to make himself seem more scary, or what. It just doesn't matter. And then
he's a
there's
used
always
car
truth
salesman.
in lies, right? Yeah, he's a car salesman. So
he's just trying to do whatever he needs to do to get you into that Volkswagen. So
yep. Yeah, they crave that spotlight. If they definitely exist, they definitely crave that spotlight. But I did want to swing it back to the doc itself. Now, does this doc focus mostly on that family, or I know you had said there was another family as well, I'm sure for just comparison's sake, but mostly we're following this family. And so were they cool with that? Or was it their idea? Like, how did they get involved?
So Kristen, the girl who was baptized, after I suggested it to Josh that, hey, can I come just shoot an interview? You know, it might be an interesting story, nonetheless, right? After I got to talk to her mom, her mom was reluctant to talk.
Sure.
And understandably so, like when she gets into stuff with her family and, you know, old stuff. And we sort of, it appears that there are two kinds of ties. There's a family tie where everyone in Heather, that's Kristen's mother, everyone in her extended family that's surviving and that we are able to speak with has had interactions with shadow figures, Thunderbird sightings, and or interactions with very large owls.
And it does, I mean, in my experience, especially with my family's like that too, it goes back generations. So there is a familial, you wonder if it's genetic, right? Or is it just like a curse upon a family, so to speak.
Right. And even like we got their, Kristen's, I believe, grandmother or great-grandmother was pure blood Native American, I was going to say princess isn't the right word. There's a different word, like great woman or something like that. But anyway, like a revered, and we we wondered if that might be connected to Princess Ericoma, who is the daughter of Chief Cornstalk. Chief Cornstalk.
Definitely know Chief Cornstalk, yeah. Yeah,
his daughter was buried in Logan, under Logan County Courthouse.
Quinky Dink?
Yeah. When the hotel that was buried on her burial site burned down, and when they dozed it, they discovered under that hotel like 50 plus Native American bodies.
Ooh,
on
bad mojo.
On one of the bodies, one of the children, I think it was a male child, had a necklace with a gorget that depicted a Birdman. So I'm saying all that to say there are, and I don't know how recently you've read Mothman Prophecies. I
read it last year, so
yeah.
Okay, there are Thunderbird sightings and sightings of large flocks of large birds associated with the Mothman flap. There are at least 2 or maybe 3, I think, recorded in Keel's book. And so there seems to be, like, there's the family tie, but then there's also like a geographical tie that I don't know how the two interact. Like what I'm doing in the doc, I'm really trying to avoid putting my meta narrative on it. I mostly want a platform for these people to tell their stories.
Right.
Yeah.
Like to some degree it's inescapable, right? Like I would say, and I don't know if you guys would agree with this, but I would say that you can't really escape your worldview. That if you don't think that you have one that's affecting you, you're probably more of a slave to it than I am, acknowledging that I have one.
Right.
Yep, I agree with that.
So acknowledging that I have one and mine is Christian, like, but I'm trying not to, inevitably there's going to be some collaring of the subject matter from my worldview just because it's inescapable. But I'm trying to avoid putting that meta narrative on it and just let people tell their stories.
Yeah.
And so I say that to say that I'm not saying that like I know mechanistically how it works. I know that there's this family tie. I know that there's a geographical tie. I know there's a tie to place. I know that Heather grew up in a house in a town called Man, West Virginia, that's south of Logan by another like hour, so closer to Kentucky. And in this house, everyone that stays in this house that we talked to and that we heard secondhand experienced things in a particular room in this home. One of the things that they experienced, and this home is wild. I'm not a paranormal investigator, but I would imagine that you could have an absolute heyday at this house. It's insane. But anyway, just the stuff looking at like the numbers of things in the house, and maybe we can get into it if it's interesting. But anyway, one of the things that happened 30 years ago, Heather's father was pushed down the stairs. He said, they pushed me down the stairs. Okay. So some entity. That's what he reported.
Yeah.
Pushed him down the stairs hard enough that he had a compound fracture in his shin.
Jeez.
We go back the day after Thanksgiving. We go back to that house. Not with no introduction, just to see if, hey, maybe these people let us in. This is like the day after I heard all the stories about the house. So I'm like, well, I don't know. Let's go see. The people let us in, and every experience that Heather's family had there is repeated now, 25, 30 years later. So there's something about place. The big experience is the man who lived in that house was also pushed down the same staircase.
Yeah.
The holes were still in the walls, and he had a compound fracture in his collarbone.
So it sounds, and that's what I was wondering, if it's happening 30 years later, it sounds like a residual haunt that just has a lot of activity with it to actually repeat itself
Yeah,
for
that's what I was
whoever
gonna
happens
say.
to be there.
I mean,
But
it
it
almost seems intelligently residual, like, which is weird.
Right. It's like maybe there's multiple things. I don't know.
Yeah.
Maybe
Yeah.
there's a thing at the house, and then maybe there's a thing that follows the family, but this stuff also followed the part of the family that went to Columbus. Like, they see shadow figures and stuff, and the shadow figures are a little different. They see a hat man, but they see a female shadow figure in that house, and they see Thunderbirds in Ohio, in Hilliard, Ohio. At the same time, all the family in West Virginia does.
Yeah.
So, like, I don't know.
I mean, I have like 30 theories in my head right now. I'm gonna pick one. I'm just gonna go with this. Like, you know, I've always been told, because I have a lot of paranormal activity. My family, like I said, goes back a long time. My grandmother, she had a spirit guide that she would invoke. My dad had a really bad back. She's this little 5'2" old lady, but had the strength of a 300-pound man when she would invoke Lee, like her spirit guide, this spirit that came to her. And there's even more stories I've been learning about the spirit guide before Lee. But this goes back generations and things like that, right? And so it's like, oh, is it hereditary? Or is it this thing? It's like, you know, we've always said, it's like people like, you know, there's people that are like, well, I've never seen it, so I don't believe it. But it's like, it's kind of one of those things, once you see it, you can't not anymore. It's like we always say, it's like getting a Jeep. All of a sudden you see Jeeps everywhere, right? You can't turn it off. And then there's also that whole idea that some people are magnets, you know, like I had a psychic once tell me that I was like a stage that they love to play on. That was the best way he could describe it. He's like, God, you have like a legion of people that just follow you, like these spirits. I was like, really? I don't really notice them. He's like, no, you're like this spotlight, this stage that they just they're attracted to. And so that made me think the way you were talking about it, it's like, it almost was like, could be multiple things. What if they're like this magnet, right? It's like they walk into a space and it just like a lint roller just grabs on, you know, like it's
or
not
or
even intentionally.
I was going to say along that magnetism line, I was going to reverse it and say maybe they're just like an amplifier. So they walk into a space and their energy amplifies whatever is already happening in that space.
I like that too. I'm an amplifier.
Yeah, I don't know. I know that it seemed at least the pattern for the two generations that are surviving. So like no one that I could find from the third generation is able to talk, but I know that they had experiences that everyone sort of associated with the same thing.
Right. So I was saying they've had stories passed down.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And but one generation prior, the Kristen's uncle, so it would be Heather's brother, was practicing a very similar set of eclectic witchcraft practices that Kristen was, without Kristen knowing that. Like, she discovered that after. I mean, like, during our interview, she discovered a lot of the things that he was doing, because I was asking the direct questions about, like, because I was thinking about recreating it, like reenacting it, you know, not for the sake of doing the ritual, but for the sake of shooting it.
Right.
And yeah, there's a lot of like similarities. And one of the one of the main entities that Kristen would seek to conjure and interact with was Lilith. okay, or Lilith.
Yeah.
Craig, unbeknownst to Kristen, Craig practiced whatever eclectic weirdness they were practicing with a I don't know if transgender would be the correct term because it's like the 70s.
Right.
And I don't know how, but a person who wanted to be referred to as Lilith only. So Kristen worships this deity and invokes this deity named Lilith. Unbeknownst to her, a generation prior, her uncle is doing this. They both have exorcism experiences, and they both are described by the people around them exhibiting the same behavior that led up to that. Like being in a room alone, in the dark, never coming out, violent outbursts, not remembering it, being like having out-of-body experiences, interactions with owls, bizarrely, like this is one of the things that both of them have. Heather experienced with both of them on separate occasions that, again, Kristen did not know about. But anyway, so there's, it seems inescapable that there's some family element.
Yeah.
But the part that starts to get real weird is that it seems like there's another thing outside the family, maybe on the other side of that veil, that's interacting, and somehow, keeps exhibiting the same pattern, even unbeknownst to them. So it's not like a just psychological pattern for them that's passed down.
Well, what's interesting, and I don't know if you know this or not, but Lilith, long before the Hebrew version that came out way long after, Lilith was Sumerian, and she was actually winged and bird-footed. So she was a winged
and associated with owls.
Yes, 100%. Yep. So I was like, "Oh shit, it's getting real now."
And Lilith, the name actually means belonging to the night.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yep, night goddess.
Yep.
She's actually, so I don't know how much I want to talk about this verbally.
I know I don't want you to give away.
Don't give away that.
Or to bring
not even
that
that
house either, but
not even that. I don't know how much I want to vocalize. But okay, so
Voldemort.
So, man, I mean, that's one of the things so people that are into the paranormal are typically more okay with people having other ideas, right? Mm-hmm. About religion or aliens or whatever. Like I can talk with, we can disagree. But one of the things that, like when I started this, I was like, I don't know. Growing up in conservative Christendom, I don't know how much I want to talk and or think about this, because there's this idea that like Voldemort, right? Is to talk about it is to invite it. And that was actually what we were talking about with Josh and I when we started this whole thing. And it's been an interesting test of faith. And maybe there's a similar experience for you guys, but it's been an interesting test of like, which God are you going to fear, I guess? Yeah. Or like which one demand, you know what I mean? So like, I feel like this is a thing that I'm supposed to do. It just, everything's sort of fallen together. It's a story I think I'm supposed to tell. Mm-hmm. And if I don't do it, because, which God am I fearing, basically?
Yeah, no,
anyway.
I get that 100%. You forget, I grew up Catholic, Southern Baptist, and then at a Southern Baptist college, I became Wiccan, and later on became Buddhist, and then I was Christo-pagan for a while, and that's really where I had that issue where I was like, do I have to look at the other gods? I really went
through that's super interesting.
Long phase and a lot of things, and really at the end of the day, I'm really more eclectic. I'm constantly searching and finding what works for me. But it's like the more and more I uncover, the more and more I just realize how all of it is kind of related. So like, especially when you start looking at Sumerian stuff, you're just like, and then you're like, I think they were aliens, y'all. I don't know.
Well, so this is really interesting. Another thing that's come from all of this is I've been reading, do you know who Michael Heiser is? Mm-hmm. Like does UFO conferences and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
And going back and now reading my Bible, understanding that there are references to ancient Near East myth. Like there's a rhetorical flourish going on. There's places where Jude is referencing Enoch.
Yep.
Like, not saying that, whatever, leaving the theology of that aside, just acknowledging that apparently the people who are writing this are working from this Enochian common Mesopotamian framework.
Yep.
Where, what Babylon and the Mesopotamian cultures believed made their culture superior was this contact with the divine, who gave them technology, who gave them magic, enchantment, root work, cosmetics, metallurgy, how to make war, all these things.
Yep.
So, and that's a really common myth, in most cultures.
It all comes from that. I mean, we talk about it all the time. If you don't have Gaia, I highly recommend it. It's a great streaming service. What is it? Ancient Civilizations.
Yeah, that's what I was getting ready to say. You need to watch Ancient Civilizations.
But one of the things they talk about that we really, really liked is Adam is not a Hebrew word. It is actually an ancient Mesopotamian Sumerian word that means animal. It means animal. And Eden is also not a Hebrew word. It is actually Sumerian as well, and it means zoo. And so it was the animals in the zoo. And so when you really start looking at ancient Sumerian myth and stuff like that, and the myth of humanity and stuff, that these gods that came down, Enlil and stuff like that, they had basically taken these animals and pinned them up. And it's crazy. It's really, really interesting stuff. And I love seeing where things come from, because every religion it's spawned by earlier cultures. It's, even Christianity has evolved over the last 2,000 years, right? It's not what Jesus and the disciples had. It is so far from that at this point. Everything changes and everything is kind of given from these earlier cultures. And, that's why I laugh. I'm like, we always talk about the Jews being in Egypt when there's really no proof of that. We should really be talking about the Jews being in like Mesopotamia and that area, and looking at the history and the culture that came from that helped spur that culture. So it's really, really interesting, especially when you get into back when the Jews were polytheistic as well, before they, went straight to Yahweh and things like that. Where did all those other gods come from, and
where did they go?
Oh, I love religious history, man.
That's one of that's a really interesting thing that, again, like reading Heiser and Doug Van Dorn, when we say as moderns, when we say we're monotheists, what we tend to mean by that is there's one God, and then there's nothing else on the spiritual side of things except maybe angels and then bad angels.
Right.
And like,
right.
that's not the cosmology of Second Temple Judaism. That's not the cosmology of the authors of the New Testament. And I would argue, I don't do this, and the doc again is trying to avoid putting meta narratives on things. But I think that it is a much more robust, and it makes the Christian worldview much more robust and greater in explanatory scope and power to say that in Genesis 6, which is the Enoch myth in Genesis, that we're given a framework of categories for understanding what's going on. And there's a lot more than just like good angels, bad angels, and then God. Like there's a lot more on that spiritual side. And when you look through, I mean, you've probably done this. When you look through scripture, there are references to lots of other things.
Oh yeah.
Sons of God, elemental spirits.
We can go all day. I think we did all.
We did creatures. Monsters of the Bible. Yeah, it was one of our first episodes.
But I mean, and then the lost books too. I mean, things like the Book of Enoch, and especially, which I love, and things like that. It's like there were a group of men that decided these are the books because we don't want the Gnostics to take over. There are different things, but yet at the end of the day, it's like there were still other scriptures written, and there are other scriptures that are being found that were back at the time of the Old Testament, that they're still finding new caves for things and stuff like that. And you're like, this worldview that they had was far more rich than we could ever imagine, especially if you consider the time span of the Jews and how much, and the being, what do you call it when you ramble around, you don't have a nomadic, that the early Jews were. I mean, they would be picking up everything they could just to fit in, to survive, to figure. I mean, that's why it's like when Moses was up on the mountain and came back down and they were worshiping the idol, it wasn't like they made it up. It was one of their gods they were already used to worshiping that provided something for them at that point, because they were scared. They weren't getting anything. They didn't know what else to do. So they did what they saw others do, or they had done it in their own culture at that point. So
and thanks to all that happening, that's why I only have 10 commandments, because they broke the third tablet.
So
right.
I think one of the the interesting thing about I guess, I would argue that understanding that worldview, that there was this this worldview of interaction across that veil with B'nai Elohim in Hebrew, the sons of God in Genesis 6, and elsewhere, like lots of elsewhere. That understanding that as part of just every culture has that.
Yep.
And if I'm understanding it from my worldview, and then I go and read something like, Christ at Caesarea Philippi, when it's recorded that he is a place, when he says something, there's a reason that he's there. And we read right past it like it's just a journalistic fact, but there's a reason that he's there. He's there at the base of Mount Hermon, right? Where the Watchers came down in Enoch to go into the daughters of men and create the Nephilim. He's there at the base of that hill. There's the temple to Pan, right? And so he's talking to Peter, and he says, upon this rock, I'll build my kingdom, and the gates of hell won't prevail against it. Like, they're looking at a temple to Pan. They're looking at the place where the sons of God came down. So like, there's it enriches what what's going on in the Bible is more than what's immediately apparent. Reading it as a 21st century modern with a a functionally materialist worldview.
So especially when you get into some, looking at trying to do your own translations as well. And our really good friend, we call him the theologian. He's a pastor and a good friend of ours. He went to Israel last year, and one of the places they went to was that Temple of Pan on one of their big trips. And so he sent us pictures and all kinds of stuff. I had him get me a little small cup of dirt, and like just cool stuff like that. So it's like, because he knew our interest in it. And so it's like, what a synchronicity there that you bring that up,
Well, and something that we've talked about quite a bit, and I think when you talk about the enrichment of all the other stuff that's happening, in biblical texts, but one of the things that really, when you think about the history, the recorded history of our people, humanity, that being up until like maybe 100 to 150 years ago, maybe we'll stretch it out to 200 years. We were very much in touch with all the things on the other side of the veil. There were stories about fairies and fae and gnomes and all this other kind of stuff, and children, green children that walked out of a hillside in Sweden, and all of that stuff was just commonplace. But for some reason, in the last 200 years, we've made it taboo. And we've made to be able to talk to or even acknowledge that those types of things exist is you're a crazy person and you need to be locked away. Obviously that's not the case, because this podcast is doing well and you're making a documentary about it and so on and so forth, but not documentary about this podcast. That'll come later. But
we'll be in contact.
But there's been a shift somehow in the way we approach these things. And so, I've got 2 young kids. They'll be like 7 in a couple of days, and they still very much believe in magic. They believe in unicorns and fairies and mermaids and all that kind of stuff. And I want them to hold on to that as long as they can, because there's something that changes in yourself when one day you decide not to believe that there is magic in the world. And I think that, as a society, we would be better off for it if we embraced what our ancestors are trying to tell us, or what they're trying to share with us, or how they're trying to guide us, and so on and so forth. I mean, I firmly believe my grandfather comes and visits me from time to time. I smell his cigarette smoke in my house. Like, he always used to smoke this certain type of cigarettes, and I smell it, from time to time. And I mean, I don't think he's here to, possess me or make me do bad things. He's here to guide me. He's here to, help me in a decision I'm trying to make, or whatever the case may be. But for some reason, everybody who thinks that way has been kind of pushed off into the corner under the label of paranormal. And then, the rest of society just turns their back on it. So soapbox moment. Sorry.
No, I agree. I think I'm hoping that one of the things that I can do for people that are, like me in 2020, basically like me before, I guess, is just, show these people's experiences and then be like, what category do you have that explains it? And if, because I don't think, and it's scary to, like, I used to have a drawer, right, that I put a label on that just was like, nah, that's crazy. And anything that was uncomfortable or that required serious critical thought that was outside the mainstream, it was easy to just put in the drawer. Mm-hmm. But to your point, you don't realize how much of humanity, particularly looking historically, how much of humanity you're just saying, no, they were liars or crazy.
Right.
And like how, one of the things that really bothers me is like chronological snobbery, that like, because we're the newest, we must know a lot more. And like, I don't agree with that.
Well, and we talked, I can't remember who it was we had on. It might've been when we talked to Kathleen Martin a few weeks back. And we were talking about how, we think, myself, Kathleen expressed a similar thought that humanity, we have grown our technology beyond our spiritualism, and that's something that our ancestors, the people, the generations that came before us, whatever their religion or whatever, but they were very spiritualistic people, and that the next stage, in order for humanity to move forward and embrace whatever is to come, we have to catch back up our spiritualism with our technology, and that we're out of balance. And I think there's a quote that's been tossed around, and I don't know if this is a paraphrase but it was from Einstein. It was like, basically, if your technology ever exceeds your humanity, then, you're in deep shit, basically, is what it said. And that's kind of where we are,
Josh.
Yeah. But that's kind of where we are, right? I mean, we're getting to that point. And so, I think for us to really move forward, we have to remember where we used to be from a spiritualistic, race of people, and readopt or apply some of those things to help us process the unknowns that are happening in the world, and not just sweep it under the rug.
Yep. And I will add to that and say 2020 was actually really good for that. I was reading an article the other day, was talking about there was almost 3 times the amount of paranormal sightings, and I'm speaking specifically of ghosts and stuff, during 2020 than any year ever on record, because so many more people were actually at home and they weren't at work being distracted and driving and things like that. So they were actually paying attention to things a lot more, and that there were more cases of the paranormal and people talking about it than any other year on record, almost 3 times as much. And so I think the pandemic was a really good thing for us in a lot of ways. In one ways, it connected us to our technology more, but it also connected us to our families and homes again, which was really interesting, because people were so desperate for people that they were talking across fences, you know what I mean? Like, for the first time, and things like that. So I find that very interesting. So I just wanted to add that to yours, Josh.
Yep. I just want to be mindful of time. I know we've been going here for a little over an hour, and I want to be respectful of your time and not make this into a 4-hour conversation. Although it certainly
I know
could
it's
be
a good one, Ward, man. I'm glad you're here.
Because
No, I'm enjoying it. Yeah.
I'm thoroughly enjoying it. So I wanted to just kind of start to wrap up a little bit, and I wanted to, we always ask, or we try to ask all of our guests that come on. So if somebody's here to talk about ghosts, we ask them how they feel about Bigfoot or aliens or whatever. But I think that we've kind of talked about things across the gambit here tonight. And so I'll ask the question this way: Is there anything that you've come across in the paranormal space that you're just really having a hard time process? You're going to put it in that drawer that you spoke of. You might get it out later and look at it, but for right now, it's going to go in the drawer.
So, a lot of the, another driving factor across 2020 was the number of friends that I had that were kind of, that were embracing different, I hate to use the term conspiracy theories, because a lot of them I think are plausible, at least.
Yeah.
But it's helpful. I mean, as a category, everyone knows what I'm talking about when I say that. So, and I guess I'm still taking a very wait and see kind of approach to all of those, particularly about things that are happening right now. Just because the realization of how much craziness was true and that we wouldn't know about if not for, the church committee. It makes that threshold of, nah, that's just crazy. They wouldn't do that, or they couldn't keep that secret. That threshold's just so high now. So the common, here's a less politically controversial example, I guess. The idea that Eisenhower met in 45, 47 with an extraterrestrial while he was supposed to, while he was supposed to be getting his teeth did. Given this, a new framework, I have a category that makes sense of, okay, I can see how I might plausibly believe that something like that happened. But it's real, it's way out here on the target.
Right.
It's way out on the things that I suspect.
Well, are you familiar with Andy Colvin? He's a West Virginia guy. He's an author and a publisher. He published the stuff with with Woody Derenberger and Injured Cold and all that, and his daughter's stuff. He's a huge he's from Point Pleasant and all that stuff. Well, he's pretty, and he published these books, so I think he kind of knows, but he kind of gave us the wink, wink, nudge, nudge that most of the Valiant Thor stuff that's out there was written by Gray Barker, which is another West Virginia guy that was there with John Keel and all that stuff, that it was Gray Barker that wrote all of the Valiant and started the Valiant Thor theory and everything as kind of a way to kind of compete with Indrid Cold, so to speak, to kind of put it on a higher level because it was hot and different stuff like that. But that's Andy's theory. I don't know how much traction is there, but
but the book Stranger at the Pentagon predates most of the books that Barker wrote. So, and Stranger at the Pentagon talks about Valiant Thor and the meeting with the president and all that kind of stuff. So, but anyways, I'm just glad, Ward, that you didn't say that, that all the upper echelon of the world are lizard people. I mean, that's one that's out there too. So
I watched Doctor Who. They're called Silurians.
So.
But Ward, we're going to get you out of here, man. Thank you so much. Like we said, we don't want to drag things on, but we did want to give you an opportunity to plug everything, because I told you had me at Accidental Exorcism. I'm already in, but I'd love for you to take a second to talk about Dark Holler and Lord.tv as well, because I've been checking it out while we've been talking, and I've already signed up, so I'm excited to be a beta tester. Let's do this. So
yeah. So, first, the documentary, So it's a series. It's a doc series. So
Right.
some of the strangeness we don't get heavy into for a few episodes, because I'm kind of taking you on the only, my journey going through it too is discovering these things as they happen. So
it is kind of your POV as well.
Yeah, I try.
like
Oh
that.
man, I hate. I love everything that Jeremy Corbell puts out. I will watch, but it drives me nuts, like how frequently he's in front of the camera. I hate being in front of the camera. It makes me uncomfortable being on the Zoom call, like looking at myself. So
I love it, so I will play you.
okay, but it's like I get how sometimes putting it together, it's almost inescapable that you have to set up a little bit. So like I'm in there a couple times in the first episode, but I try not to do that as much as I can. I want it to be these people telling their stories. When it gets to the stuff that we actually experienced on the ground in the later episodes, it's just necessarily we're there. But yeah, so the documentary, we start with Kristen and her experience, and then it goes back from there, and kind of as much information as we can give on that. And then it ends with some pretty bizarre stuff, like in that house, and then what happens when we get back from that house. So yeah, I've always wanted to make something that I wanted to watch, and I'm pretty proud of at least this first episode that's done. I'm pretty proud of it, and I think that the story's really, really interesting. So I don't know, I'm excited about it. And yeah, lore's really interesting. If you like, they will deliberately kind of post some inflammatory stuff for the purpose of trying to be a place where, like if there's a Matt Stone or a Trey Parker out there, that doesn't feel like their stuff could get made right now, like that's what they're trying to shoot a flare up in the sky and be like, hey, come here. So, but I happen to know one of the guys that started it, and when he saw, I think the first teaser that I put together, he was like, I want that. So we're super grateful that they've given a home to Dark Holler at the time. So websites, www.darkhollerfilm.com, and on like Facebook and Instagram, we're at Dark Holler Film. And then there will be a page at lore.tv too. I'm
excited. Do we have any idea of when we can possibly see this?
I'm not allowed to say. I've been saying soon, and I'm hoping for, I guess I could say that. It's not saying anything about what I know. I'm hoping for August. So
fantastic. Well, please let us know, because we will share the hell out of this. I am so super pumped about it. And Josh will tell you, I don't blow sunshine up people's asses. I'm legit mean this. I'm very, very pumped about this. Everything you've talked about is right up my alley, and I cannot wait to see Dark Holler. Ward Hiney, director of Dark Holler, going to be on lore.tv. We cannot wait. Thank you so much for being on the show, and please come back anytime, especially when this drops. We'd love to have you come back, man. So
thank you guys so much. It's been a blast.
Big thanks to Ward Hiney, man. Thank you so much, man. Dark Holler, I cannot wait for this to drop. I'm so very excited. It's just
a great conversation tonight. I mean, fantastic.
I mean, you guys aren't even privy to the unrecorded conversation that we had for an hour afterwards. Ward, you are an exceptional human being, man, and I'm excited to follow your journey, my friend. And I'm looking forward to catching up soon. So
get together and do some stuff.
Man, that's what I'm talking about. But Josh, it's getting late, brother. So I want to get out of here. But I did want to say I sped through because I was so excited about getting to the Ward interview that I forgot that you had told me you had some creepy catch up. So we're gonna do some post interview creepy catch up.
Creepy catch up. Creepy catch up. Creepy catch up. Creepy catch up. Y'all, it's creepy.
All right, so creepy catch up, Josh. What do you got here? Because I have nothing. I was sick all last week, like I said, so I slept I did have super weird dreams where I dreamed of my basement 3 nights in a row, and it like changed size and different things like that, like from when I was a kid. But that's it. It wasn't really creepy. It was just weird that I dreamed about my basement 3 nights in a row. So what's your creepy catch up? I know we talked with Ward a little bit about the UFO you caught, and we posted that online as well.
Yeah.
But what else you got going on?
So of course there's that. So when I was out recording for that, and I've got another video that I still have to edit from what I was recording last night for UFO stuff. But so I walked around to the front of my house because like I caught that really bright one, and then like I came out from checking to make sure it wasn't an airplane and walked around to the front of the house hoping I could catch it, still out in the distance. It was gone. But anyway, so I pretty much recorded the rest of the night out there, out in the front of the house. So I'm standing there in the middle of the road in the dark. And it's funny because normally like 6 or 7 months ago, I would have felt really vulnerable and exposed, but I didn't feel that way last night. It was really interesting the way my mind has shifted it, I guess. But anyway, so I'm standing there and I'm just, I'm looking straight up the sky, looking at stars and stuff. And I hear Joshua.
Ooh. Especially, I hear my name called all the time. It's creepy every time.
I bring, immediately, I bring the night vision down and I'm like looking like around me to see.
You're probably like, bitch, why you using my full name?
So, and then I didn't see anything, and I just kind of shrugged it off, and then I went back to looking at the stars. So then I started hearing like really heavy breathing around me. I was hearing like footsteps around me. I mean, there was a lot, and it was crazy because there was a lot of activity going on in the sky, like interacting with things, and then there was activity going on around me. It was like in the interview tonight, we talked about magnets or something, or amplifiers, maybe some of that was going on, but yeah,
it's like the more and more you get into it, the more and more you up the ampage on your amplifier too.
Well, and I every night when I go to bed, I ward my house, but
you ward Hiney your house?
Yep. So I was far outside of the reaches of any warding that would have happened there. So there's who knows what was out roaming around where I was in the clutches. But yeah, I mean that was the only thing that was really, just again I kept hearing noises, and then that one time I heard something whisper my name. So that was about it. Yeah. If that's enough. I don't know if that's enough.
No, that's enough, dude. Just the Joshua alone is more than enough. Especially using your full first name. Not you are not on friend status with them. So
no.
Well, thanks for sharing that, Josh. I know we need to wrap up, but I do want to get to our encounter from the FearScape. Got a really cool encounter from a person named Robert from the Sunshine State of Florida that we got this encounter from the FearScape from them. So go ahead and take a listen to this true encounter.
So this is the first ghost I remember encountering. I was probably 5 or 6 at the time. I shared a bedroom with my brother in the back right of the house. One night I got up and had to use the restroom. So I opened the bedroom door and started out into the hallway. As soon as I did that, a girl with white hair and a white dress started passing me. And I know that sounds cliche, but I remember thinking that I didn't know who she was or what she was doing there. And I glanced at her for a moment as we passed each other. Only when I got past her did it strike me that she had no feet or anything below the white dress. This frightened me horribly, so after staying in the bathroom for at least a half hour in fear, I slowly crept out and knocked on my sister's bedroom door. She had the bedroom in front of mine, and I woke her up and I asked if I could sleep in there, and she was annoyed, of course, because she's my sister, but she went ahead and let me. I slept in there, and I never saw that figure again. That much I do remember, which is odd because a lot of my childhood I cannot remember for some reason, but I will never forget the girl in white with no feet.
Interesting.
Yeah. Interesting that he said he didn't remember a lot of his childhood. I'm like, ooh, is it repressed, regressed? Like, what's going on? I don't know.
Yeah.
But yeah, woman in right is, I mean, he said it's cliche, but cliche doesn't mean it's not accurate. It doesn't happen. You know,
Yeah.
I don't know why, but yeah. And a girl too, not even a woman in white, but a girl in white.
Yeah.
So. Maybe it was his sister astral traveling.
I mean, we talked about that. Maybe it is. So
who knows? I don't know. But thank you, Robert. You can send your encounters to us. Anything if you've encountered a UFO sighting, a Sasquatch, a ghost, or just you've got an old piece of folklore or legend that's been passed down in your family, like Ward was talking about, stories that got passed down. We'd love to hear those as well. Also, just a reminder, please support us on our Patreon. We have our new Patreon set up with all sorts of new levels. We've got some really great tiers that are out there, not just Wristwatch. If you're interested in following the Terry Wrist journey, we would very much love for you to follow that. The man that claims to be Terry Wrist is always getting deeper and crazier and stuff like that. And if you want to know more about that, that's one of the tiers, or just get onto any of the tiers there. We've got some cool perks that you can get, but you can get that patreon.com/FearScapePod, or just go to fearscapepodcast.com/support, as well as go to our store and get shirts and stuff, because
mugs, socks, whatever,
underwear. No, there's.
I don't think we have underwear.
We need some underwear though.
We need some boxers. Yeah.
We do. But anyways, yeah, just always remind you, because we do have some Q&As coming up. That's going to be Patreon only, especially talking about Terry Wrist. And if you want to be a part of that, we got some really cool information we have not shared yet, even on Patreon. So get on there. But other than that, Josh, you got anything else before we rock and roll, sir?
No, just reminder: review, share, whatever. It all helps us out.
It does. We love you guys so much. Thank you guys so much for tuning in to FearScape Paranormal Podcast here on the FearScape Media Network. Make sure to check out all the other podcasts on the FearScape Media Network that are out there. FearScapeMedia.com. Such great shows. But we are going to get out of here. My name is Stefan, and I love you guys. But keep your eyes to the skies.
This has been Josh. The truth is now.
And remember, folks, hold those blankets extra tight. Things tend to get spooky when you're listening to FearScape. Good night, everybody.
Good night.
We hope you have enjoyed this guidepost on the road of high strangeness with us. And we thank you, as always, for listening and joining our caravan to the weird and unknown. Please consider supporting us as we continue our journey to find the answers we all seek. FearScapePodcast.com/support.